want to drill down now and tell you more about what we're learning about the alleged shooter, Jared Lee Loughner. As we said, he's 22 years old. Some serious clues are starting to emerge from his online ramblings, which include some anti-government sentiments and some sentiments that are, frankly, incomprehensible. Our senior justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, has been looking into all of this. Pierre, good morning to you in Washington.
Dan, in a scene that I can't recall in more than a decade of covering the FBI, the director himself is in Arizona overseeing an investigation focused on a young man who apparently descended into madness, and there's concern that an accomplice may still be on the loose. By all accounts, 22-year-old Jared Lee Loughner was a troubled young man. What authorities believe is Loughner's MySpace page suggests he had been preparing for a murderous rampage. A few hours before the shootings, he allegedly wrote a message entitled, "Goodbye, friends. It begins, dear friends, please don't be mad at me." Eyewitnesses say Loughner was coldly detached as he shot the congresswoman and victim after victim. He appears to have been obsessed with violence and was apparently angry at the government. Look at this YouTube posting. It's one of his favorites. Let the bodies hit the floor. Loughner also left his final thoughts in a YouTube video with red and white text set against a black background. He resists being called a terrorist and says he's in deep need of sleep. He also lists his favorite books, including Mein Kampf, the Communist Manifesto, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Former high school classmates said Loughner never fit in.
Kind of a lonely kid, just off to himself, more of an outcast.
He tried to enlist in the military, but sources say he was rejected. After a series of failures, he became known to police.
There have been law enforcement contacts with the individual where he made threats.
Overnight, police released this picture of a man they are calling a person of interest. And as the hunt for a potential accomplice continues, a massive effort is underway to dissect Loughner's life. The investigative task force includes not only the FBI, but local and state police and a cadre of other federal agencies. Dan, until that other suspect is located, police say they can't be comfortable that the shooting has stopped.
But even though they're looking for another suspect, they're still saying that Loughner fits the profile of a lone wolf. Is that right?
You know, Dan, while we don't yet know if he had an accomplice, he seems to fit the profile of something the FBI has been worried about, the domestic, homegrown lone wolf terrorist, angry at the government for a variety of reasons and willing to kill. Just last year, a man flew a plane into an IRS building in Texas. He left internet messages that contained similar anti-government and incoherent rants.
Right, that was Joe Stack. That is a huge concern for federal officials.
And Fox News has just obtained a memo that details possible links between the accused shooter and at least one anti-government and anti-Semitic group. James Rosen joins me now. He's following this breaking news for us in Washington. Jared Loughner is going to make his first court appearance. We just want to remind everybody that's going to happen moments from now. We will get you to that as soon as it comes in. James, what are we learning about this young man?
Martha, good morning. We know that Loughner will be appearing via secure video link from his detention cell for this court appearance. It's a somewhat unusual method. We don't know exactly which court he will be appearing in. He's in FBI custody. He is awaiting arraignment. It is possible that Loughner will face both federal and state charges in this case. Federal murder charges could subject him, after any conviction, to the death penalty. At the same time, authorities are on the hunt for a second suspect in this case, and they have released this still photograph taken from a routine surveillance video of this man. He is described as a white man in his 40s or early 50s, wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. Officials have been vague about why they believe a second individual may have been involved in the shootings, but they're asking anyone who knows who that individual in that photograph might be to contact the authorities. Martha.
Yeah, James, Fox got his hands on some intelligence from DHS that has a little bit more information about what they're learning about this young man and a connection that he may have with a group known as AMREN. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is all breaking in just the last hour. Fox News obtained this DHS memo obtained by my colleague, our Pentagon correspondent, Jennifer Griffin. This memo was intended as a summary of the known facts of this case at about 6 p.m. last night. It gave us our first indication, for example, that Jared Loughner's mother works for the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Now, the DHS memo says that where Loughner's possible motive for his alleged crimes might be concerned, quote, strong suspicion is being directed at a group called American Renaissance. Suspect is possibly linked to this group, the memo says, through videos posted on his MySpace and YouTube account. The memo goes on to say the group's ideology is anti-government, anti-immigration, anti-ZOG, which is a reference to Zionist Occupational Government, and anti-Semitic, unquote. Now, we have some more breaking news here, Martha. I just got off the phone with Jared Taylor, the Yale-educated founder of American Renaissance. The group is unabashedly preoccupied with race and the alleged genetic differences between the races. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups in America, describes American Renaissance as a self-styled think tank that promotes pseudo-scientific studies and research that purport to show the inferiority of blacks to whites. Well, Mr. Taylor says he had never heard of Loughner until yesterday. Quote, that is complete nonsense. I have absolutely no idea what DHS is talking about. We have never used the term ZOG. We have never thought in those terms. Mr. Taylor adds, if this is the level of research we're getting from DHS, then heaven help us. One last note here, Martha. American Renaissance says it has checked its subscriber list going back 20 years and the attendee rolls at its events, and they have no record of Jared Loughner ever subscribing to their publications or attending.
Meantime, Congressman Robert Brady out of Pennsylvania is on the phone with us right now. So, Congressman, were you part of that conference call today that involved the discussion about security and where to go from here?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What was encouraging about that call to you and how there may be potentially changes to ensure that all elected officials feel safer?
The best thing that was encouraging was the bipartisanship that we had in the conversation, that we need to be working together. We need to be closing down the rhetoric. We need to show the American people that we're not going to be as argumentative as we have been, and just close down this rhetoric instead of, the way, not business as usual.
And meantime, you are also introducing some legislation that you were hoping, now 24 hours after that attack in Tucson, hoping to make it a federal crime for a person to use language or symbols that could be perceived as threatening or inciting violence against any member of Congress. More specifically, how do you suppose this is going to address any other concerns that people have stemming from what happened yesterday?
We're going to expand Title 18, United States Code, Section 871, that deals with threats against the president. We're going to expand it to members of Congress and performance of their duties. That's what we're going to do. I mean, we are as out there as much as anybody else, and we intend to criminalize behavior that engage in putting crosshairs or bullseyes on members of Congress and on their district.
And you're speaking specifically to a website on a political action committee, that of the former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, when once upon a time there was that target or bullseye, and there were pictures of members of Congress, and in fact, Congresswoman Giffords' image was actually on that. It has since been taken down, but you are specifically pointing to that as an example of something you believe should be a federal crime.
Yes, we're going to make that a federal crime. Exactly.
We are admittedly in somewhat speculative territory still here as it clarifies. However, this is one of the rare cases where a political assassin, if Loughner is indeed guilty, has been caught alive. And whatever questions we have tonight, the gunman himself, in theory, can someday answer, although the sheriff says he has invoked his right to remain silent. Until then, let's draw on the expertise of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks political militancy in this country, and Mark Potok is the director of the center's intelligence project. Thanks for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
Loughner's internet trail, does it tell us anything about his politics? Does that specific reference to the 8th district, the Congresswoman's district, does that step out of the incoherence, or is it just part of the incoherence?
Well, you're right, that reading through all of his materials, or the materials that are purported to be his, he sounds quite mad, out of his mind. But there is a thread through the material that really seems pretty clear, and that thread has to do with seeing the government as an enemy. The books you mentioned, there's a theme that runs through all of them, in particular the Ayn Rand book, the idea of the individual against the state. But there are ideas like the idea of the only legitimate currency being backed by gold and silver. You know, that's a core idea of the radical right in this country. The idea, weirdly enough, of controlling grammar, of somehow the government using grammar to control the people, is an idea that exists on the radical right. There's a particular person, a man named David Wynn Miller, who has plugged this idea over the years. This man also talked quite a lot in these strange videos of his about what he called conscience streaming, but I think is almost certainly meant to be conscious streaming, which is an idea that also has been kind of tossed around on the radical right, in particular by a kind of British conspiracy theorist by the name of David Icke. So,
hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, January 10th, 2011, and I'm Darko. Welcome to this news bulletin, everyone. I just want to get through all those videos. We'll read off some of the headlines that I have here, and then I'll cut to part 2, where I'll just finish up pretty much with all the articles I have. That'll include War on Terror, Liberty, Sovereignty, Big Brother, and other news as well. New listeners, please visit my website at www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. So I have this first article up from Fox News, and it's about it says American Renaissance denies DHS charges any affiliation with shooter. That's right. That day, there was all kinds of different stories going on. Basically, that he was a conservative, or like Mr. Potok just said, a radical right, even though they used the Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto, which are about as big, pro big state, big government as you can get. So they're very their stories are convoluted and don't make any sense. So there you have that headline right there, and you look at this. Look who else pulls bullseye on Gifford. It says leftist blog points finger at Palin while scrubbing dead to me rant, and goes on here and talks about the Daily Kos shortly after the news broke of the attempted murder of Representative Gabrielle Giffords, Democrat from Arizona. The left-leaning blog Daily Kos was swift to scrub its post from a Tucson writer explaining how the congresswoman was now, quote, dead to me. One of the blog's diary writers, identifying himself as Boy Blue, had written a post only 2 days before the shooting titled, quote, my congresswoman voted against Nancy Pelosi, and now she's dead to me. So, and there's the actual screenshot of it. So there you go. That's actually so that's basically, I guess, it's kind of show that that this individual is not a conservative. It says here, Jared Loughner, alleged shooter in Gabrielle Giffords' attack, described as by classmates as left-wing pothead. It says a classmate of the man accused of shooting Congressman Giffords this morning described him as a, quote, left-wing and a pothead in a series of posts on Twitter this afternoon. So, and you can check that out. Links will be posted. It says return fire at Gifford's massacre hushed up by media. It says in a fast-moving incidents like the Gifford shooting, it says details often emerge on and are either glossed over by the corporate media or ignored. On Saturday, Fox News reported that somebody in the crowd outside the Safeway where Giffords was shot in a town meeting fired back at the deranged gunman Jared Lee Loughner as he shot and killed others. Fox News' Shepard Smith was aghast that somebody would fire back at the gunman in self-defense. He characterized it as a, quote, shootout. In fact, if true, it was an armed citizen attempting to take out the gunman and defend fellow citizens. Once upon a time, that's how it was done in America. Now, quote, conservatives on television characterize it as a shootout. After Smith reported this, it was not mentioned again.
Law enforcement officials say the gunman in the crowd shot Giffords and a person in the crowd shot at the gunman. A person in the crowd shot back at the gunman. This is from the reporting of azcentral.com, which is the newspaper for the local area there. I'm going to read that to you again. Arizona law enforcement say a gunman in the crowd shot at Giffords and a person in the crowd shot at the gunman. Can you imagine? You are at Congress on your corner. Somebody and a shootout begins as your congresswoman is shot in the head and a child is shot and killed and people are running for their lives in America. 5 others were reportedly killed, as I mentioned. Again, this is from...
So there you go, folks. Shepard Smith would rather have Americans running like cowards instead of packing some heat and actually taking care of the situation, kind of like on a university. If you want to end a university shooting, you allow the students who are trained and know how to handle a firearm, take them out. I mean, why wait 2 hours like at Virginia Tech so people can get slaughtered, right? No, no, no. You got to trust the state. The police will be there for you. So please join me in part 2 of this news bulletin. We're going to get more into this. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.